Well, good afternoon from Evergreen Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This is the cemetery that gives Cemetery Hill its name here on the battlefield. Since 1854, it's been the final resting place of the citizens of this town. The prominent names you see on battlefield maps like McPherson and Sherfy or Culp, they're all buried here. But this is also the site that was chosen for the National Cemetery in 1863. And the platform where Abraham Lincoln delivered his Gettysburg Address was placed right on the edge of Evergreen Cemetery, overlooking the National Cemetery that was still in the process of being constructed. Well, today we get to be a part of something really special. I'm here this weekend as part of the Gettysburg Film Festival, and we've had the opportunity to spend time with people like Ken Burns and Martin Sheen and Sam Waterston. Martin Sheen, and you will hear this from me until the day I die, I will gush about that man, could not be a kinder person. He has been so generous and overwhelmingly kind with his time. He's just a wonderful guy, fellow Ohioan, and it's been just a privilege to spend time with Martin, spend time with Ken Burns, and gonna get to spend some time with Sam Waterston. And that's why we're here, because they've closed the cemetery off to the public. And one of the reasons I got into Civil War history in the first place was Gore Vidal's Lincoln. It was a TV miniseries in the late 80s when I was just 11, 12 years old. And Sam Waterston played Lincoln and did a phenomenal job. And he's gonna come here. It was Martin Sheen's idea to do this. He's gonna come here and we're gonna stand in the spot where Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address, and Sam Waterston is going to read the Gettysburg Address for us. It's closed to the public. There's maybe about 20 of us that are gonna be here for this, but we've been invited to be able to film the experience. Looking forward to sharing it with you.
Earlier as our historian, he's just going to show you where the Gettysburg Address was given. And they're going to have some people filming.
Sam Waterston's here.
Oh, I didn't know he was going to do this.
I think Sam's going to do most of that.
Hi there. Hi.
Welcome.
Yeah, I've got to get organized.
Push that button up top.
It was cut from the schedule.
Look at this.
A new thing to enter on my schedule by getting it because he's
No,
using
yours
it,
is the same.
but it's a different one.
It's the same one we ordered for you, but he has a new one.
But the guy
Oh.
who's going to get seen inside.
Oh, it's you.
Okay, going
He'll be
back.
good, deeply busy.
Well, welcome.
Going back, you'll go in.
I don't know. See anything else? Whoops, there goes your car.
Welcome to Evergreen Cemetery. So we're right near the site where the Gettysburg Address was given. I'm going to let Tim, our historian, give you just a little synopsis.
Hi, Tim. Hi. So this is Evergreen Cemetery, and you probably know that Cemetery Hill's called that because there's a cemetery on the hill at the time. And Evergreen was established in what was a town meeting in 1853, 10 years prior to the battle. There were about 500 people buried here at the time of the Civil War. Not only did we have people being buried here afterwards, but families bought plots from the town, and people were moved in here from other town cemeteries. So even though the cemeteries dates from 1853 and the first burial is 1854, there are people here that were, from the American Revolution, the French and Indian War. Of course, the story of the Gettysburg Address is pretty simple. A lot of men were killed in the Battle of Gettysburg and needed a place to be buried. The governor of Pennsylvania came to Gettysburg shortly after the battle and decided that perhaps there should be a place where all the soldiers from Pennsylvania should be buried in one location. And so he hired a local agent, David Wills, who was a prominent lawyer and helped Governor Curtin in his campaign to become governor in 1860, and they chose a plot of ground. Meanwhile, Governor Curtin of Pennsylvania talked to other governors of other northern states, and he came up with this idea for the Soldiers' National Cemetery. Eventually, 3,500 northern soldiers who were killed in the battle would be buried in this cemetery. And then, of course, they wanted to dedicate the ceremony, and eventually they came up with November 19th as a date. At that time, there were a lot less graves in this part of the cemetery. There was no fence between the two cemeteries, and a large platform was built for the dedication ceremony. And, you know, since the 1940s, people have been analyzing where the platform actually was, where Lincoln spoke from. And although there's been several different locations that people have been proposed, most of it, most of the locations are just right over here. And it's been pretty well established that Lincoln actually gave the speech from the platform here, speaking to a crowd that stood out in what is now the Soldiers' National Cemetery. So let's walk over to near the spot. So
Where you're standing.
So
Right. We don't know.
the
exact-
platform is pretty
There was
big.
a platform, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, and it's 30 foot long, like 16 foot wide, and it's somewhere in this area. Right, Gary?
Yes. Feel free to get into it if you have time.
Get into what?
Some people disagree about the exact location and orientation.
Yeah. But this is near the spot.
Good. Well, we were wondering if you might grace us with a reading of the address.
I'll do it quietly if you don't mind.
It was his idea.
So did he. You hear, right?
Do you want to stand next to him,
Is there
Mark?
any historic?
Come over here, Mark.
Well, there were like 15,000 people in the crowd that day, and every one of the people here heard every word of the address according to their accounts, even on the far outskirts of the crowd. So that's a common.
A bunch of liars.
Here's a copy,
can't
Mark,
trust
if you want,
any of those.
if you want to.
But one thing
Come
we like to tell people that if 15,000 people attended the Gettysburg Address and the crowd is out here in front of us, probably 10,000 of them are from Adams County. So, and a lot of the people that heard the Gettysburg Address are buried here in the cemetery around us.
On the same day? No.
No. And as Andrew mentioned earlier, for the rest of their lives, they remembered this
Yeah.
moment
Yeah,
that
for sure.
they were here and heard Lincoln deliver the address.
When I was getting ready to play this part, I went to the Library of Congress, and the spoken word librarian speculated about whether it could have been possible that he was heard, and he said that his voice was famously pitched, and then he played some people from Appalachia, and you can imagine that it had carrying power. So who knows? Who knows how far it went? But anyway, I'm not going to do that now.
That was pretty good. Now I want to hear more of it.
I'm going to read it very quiet.
Okay.
87 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We've come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives, that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, We cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. It's so good. It is so good. Thanks. But I mean, we were talking about this. We're talking about this coming over in the car. You know, this speech is now like a monument. People forget to notice, maybe, what a great piece of speech writing it is. It is just astounding. And boy, is it mighty to be standing here?
I'm wondering if anyone knows that. Has anyone ever done it here?
Oh,
They have.
Yeah.
Who's done it here?
Well, not any of the dignitaries, Tim. And there's the superintendent of the cemetery.
No request to the cemetery,
no.
for anybody to read.
Yeah, today
Especially the
there's a
gentleman.
rostrum set up over there when they do the Gettysburg Address ceremony November 19th. Yeah.
But no one has ever done it on this spot since the man that did it originally.
Well, I don't, not that I know, well,
Maybe privately.
maybe privately.
Yeah.
Here's another
That's right.
story
That's
that
good.
sort of
That's very
links
good.
to what it feels like to be doing this here. When I was getting ready to play Lincoln, I went to the Library of Congress, and I went into the, I don't know if you're familiar with what the Library of Congress is like, but the card catalog room used to be just to your right when you came up the stairs, and it was a magnificent room with a big domed ceiling and all that stuff, and just card files as far as the eye could see. So I'm standing there sort of sucking my thumb, and somebody comes over and says, can I help you? And I say, and she's got the Library of Congress uniform on. I say, I don't know, maybe. I'm just wondering if you got here anything here about Lincoln. And she kind of looked at me like I must have been from Mars and said, we are the Lincoln Library. And I said, oh, good. And she said, may I ask why you ask? And I said, because I'm going to play him. And she said, oh dear. And then she spent the rest of the afternoon, she marshaled the troops. And they just poured stuff into me. They you know, the bronze cast of his hand and the letter, the exchange of letters with the actor James Hackett, and just amazing amounts of stuff. And just by the way, not to embarrass me or anything, showed me the shelf that was bigger than several Encyclopedia Britannicas of things related to Lincoln. So I was just absolutely crammed full of stuff, and then I was going to have to leave. And I can't remember his name, but one of the people that had been feeding me information said one last thing. And it was getting to be the end of the day, and people were starting to leave the library and all that stuff. So I follow him, and we, you know, the staircases at the Library of Congress are very impressive. So we go down these huge staircases, down and down and down, and we get to the ground, the basement, and there's nobody in the hall or anything, and the lights, most of the lights are out, and we go down the hall, and then we go down another hall, and it's really, really far, and we get to there's a room on the right at the back end of the hall, and he opens the door, and there are big, like pool table sized tables, work tables with lamps over them, and they're all out except one at the very back right hand corner of the room, and there's a guy working at the table, and the man I'm with says, "Have you closed it up yet?" And he says, "No, but I'm about to." He says, wait, I have somebody I want to show this. I want to show this stuff to. He says, well, from the back of the room as we're crossing the floor, I don't know if that's a good, no, it's on me, I take responsibility. So we get there, and somebody hold this.
Eli, here. Oh, you got it? Here you go.
And he scoops up what's on the table, and he says, hold out your hands. Hold out your hands. Okay? Yeah. The contents of Lincoln's pockets on the night he was shot. So, that's like this.
Yeah.
That's like this. This is something.